I'm Clint, and this is Diana, and welcome to the Swatches Art Challenge. We're going to be reviewing the finals of the Carriage-Inspired Characters Challenge. This is a live stream, so we're going to take a minute here to double check our settings, make sure everything's looking good. Then we're going to be going over a couple of announcements for a few minutes while people have a chance to join in the stream live. Then we'll be moving to the review of the artwork. We've got, I forget, 10 or 11 pieces to look at today. I've done minor paint overs of most of them, but some really good entries this time. And if anybody's already joining in live, just make a comment, say hi, let us know where you're coming from, to let us know that the stream looks okay, audio's okay, chat's working, all that stuff. And that would be great. Okay. YouTube says everything's looking good.
I'm checking it, but I don't know.
It looks like we have some viewers.
Okay.
There's about a 10-second delay between anything that I say and when it actually comes up on the live stream.
Just give it a moment.
Audio's good? Excellent.
Oh. Hello,
Hey,
Christina.
we already got a like. Sweet. I always forget to tell people to like the video, but yeah, if you enjoy watching the videos, please give them a like. Ever since I started the job last year with Blizzard, I haven't really been touching the channel, and YouTube's been very slow about promoting my videos again now, because I took off for so long. So any amount of thumbs up and commenting on the videos is really good to let YouTube know, like, hey, we're still enjoying these videos and we want you to promote them more. So, all right, Christina, and awesome, Olivia, Nico.
Arlie, hi.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining in live. All right. It looks like that's all good. So we'll go ahead and just hit over the announcements today and start looking at the artwork. Looking at that screen, I think I can make that just a little bigger. Yeah. All right, a couple of different points. If you are not aware, which you should be aware if you follow the channel, we have our fall classes starting in 2 weeks. And these are online live teaching. They're 8 weeks long. You will be given demonstrations, some draw-alongs, paint-alongs in the lesson. And we have been jamming literally for like weeks and weeks, a couple of months actually.
We've been working really hard every day on stuff, so yeah, we have a lot of great content prepared.
Yeah, guys, we're getting what we have learned, her teaching from Sin Studio Concept Art School, me from doing the channel and different classes and stuff in the past, learning new techniques ourselves, new ways of teaching material, and just going back and forth, bouncing off each other, how to improve the lessons. So if you're interested, just go out to swatchesacademy.com. We've got 4 different classes going on right now: material rendering, environment diorama, character concept design, and character portraits. If you're looking for a community of artists to hook up with, share your work with, we do have a Discord community. You can see the link there on screen. I actually did forget to put that in the description. It says link below. The link is not below. I'll have to add it after the video posts. But if you do have questions during the live stream today, then feel free to put them in the chat. We'll try to keep an eye on the chat as it goes. If you want to speak to me, you know, in particular, not just among yourselves, then make sure you are saying at Swatches in your comment, and it will flag it in yellow for me, and I will notice that in the chat. Particularly if we are reviewing your actual artwork and you have a question or comment about our feedback, you're welcome to put that in while we're reviewing your stuff. Okay, next up is the Other Art Challenge. which has to be delayed.
The other art challenge, which we don't know what it's going to be.
We do have 7 or 8 other challenge topics.
Mhm.
We've already talked about them. We've outlined what they would be about, even gathered some reference images for them. But we just can't run that while we're also running all of the 8-week classes. So more art challenges will start up after the classes wrap up. So it'll probably be towards the end of November. Now we might have some other live streams going on. We might just do some hangout live streams or something else. I'll let you guys know that, but there's nothing set yet. And there's a lot of interest. Different people have come out to our consult mentorships. I just want to give everybody kind of a general announcement about those and just kind of clarify something on those hour consults. They are to be more of an actual consult rather than an ongoing proper mentorship, if you want to say that. A lot of people are coming into it, and what they're really looking for is ongoing, structured education that is tailored to them. And that's just not what those are for. If you want a portfolio review, that's great. I can handle that during the hour. If you want to analyze a particular piece that is important or your first piece or something like that, you want problem solving, analyzation, you can do that. You want some advice on your career, putting together your portfolio, that sort of thing. But it's not really made to do ongoing teaching, because what it ends up doing is puts me in the position of trying to, on the fly, within an hour, look at your stuff, figure out what you need to do, and generate an entire curriculum custom to you. And that's just not really something that I can do that much. Curriculum is a complex thing, and it takes a lot of time and work to put together. And I can't really do that on the fly week to week when I'm also trying to juggle a lot of other things. Now, if you are looking for more of a one-on-one, I'd give a shout out to Adam Duff, colleague, friend of mine, and he has a channel called Lucid Pixel, and that's Pixul. So you can look him up. Chatted with him even the other day, and he does like 2 hour a week one-on-one mentorships, and that might be something that is more appropriate for what you're looking for. So I'll give a shout out to him if that's what you're looking for. But if you want general portfolio reviews, career advice, that sort of thing, you can still go up to Art Mentor. Do be aware, though, that those are only open as time allows. If I'm particularly busy, then I'm not going to have any time slots available. So it's just when I can fit that in. All right, anything else that we're forgetting?
No, I was just going to say Adam is prepared for that, and that's actually, I think, exclusively the way he teaches. So if a person wants that ongoing, like lots of one-on-one time just between them and the instructor, Adam is set up for that. But for us, it just didn't make sense to be doing that and the classes at the same time. It was too time consuming and difficult.
Yes, Kina, you're right. He does usually stay pretty booked up. But hey, you can check with him, see what his availability is. Maybe he has some other classes, courses, events coming up. I don't know. I didn't really look at his full schedule. But it is another option, at least, to look into. The only other proper ongoing instruction that we have are the classes. That's sort of my answer to.
I mean, there is one-on-one. Well, it's not one-on-one, but there is live FaceTime with these classes. It's just that it's not a custom-built curriculum for one person, which is very time-consuming. A lot of work goes into that, and it just doesn't make sense to be doing that with someone like once a month or once a week for an indeterminate amount of time. It's a big commitment.
Okay. Well, I think as many people wanted to come in. Yep, we got plenty of people in here. Let's go ahead and get started. So, the challenge was to do a character inspired by a vintage coach, like a carriage. And we've already seen 2 weeks ago, we reviewed the concepts. Now we're going to be looking at the final entries. I'm just going to be going alphabetically by the first name. So, first up is a piece by Alan Yu. And let me just come up here to what's on this layer. Nothing. And I'm particularly, guys, I really appreciate how much work you guys did over the last 2 weeks. Practically everyone sent in a piece, and everyone put in a considerable amount of time onto their piece. So I just want to give a general shout out to everybody on that. If you don't remember last review, on the right, on this upper hand area, that is the sketch or concept that was submitted. We gave them some feedback, and now we have the main image here in the center. All right, there's a little delay, but it's not nearly as bad as last time. That's good. So on this one, I still really love how clean the render is here. We're staying away from fuzziness. I know exactly everything that I'm looking at. A lot of the individual pieces, like the hat, the lantern, even the bandolier, there's a lot of components that have been referenced, and that is coming through well. But we were looking at it earlier, and we still feel like there's a couple of points that are sticking, and mainly having to do with just kind of the design of the jacket and the belt. Those are particularly points that I feel like are kind of catching on this piece. So, you want to talk about that? Talk about the proportions. I just did like a little cinch waist proportion change.
Oh, well, yeah, I think it's kind of odd. The proportions on the character are reading because of the way you've chosen to put the belt cinched in at the waist and cinching in the jacket or the coat. It gives it a little bit of a feminine vibe. It makes the waist look very narrow and delicate.
Mm-hmm.
So the shoulders and the arms are also quite a bit delicate looking. So these are just kind of the first impressions. I think your rendering is really good, like Clint said, really clean, really nice. I like that you did some work on the socks, and they're really well resolved. I noticed that. A nice referenced shoe. There's a lot of good things about it. It's just a couple of things that are kind of reading the wrong way, in my opinion. It's mostly the position of the belt and a bit of the proportion on the upper body.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple of people have commented on, and you're exactly right. And they did turn the pose, so we have a slightly more 3/4 view.
Very nice.
And that was an excellent change. The front view was okay, but it's certainly not as interesting as a kind of a turned pose. So here what I want to note is when you have the body, and basically looking at the upper body, lower body, and you can put the belt at different heights on the character. And if you put it higher, it generally creates what would be considered a more feminine arrangement of shapes, because it makes a shorter upper body and kind of a longer lower body. Where guys generally will cinch things a little lower. They're not trying to cinch it at the thinnest part of their waist. They're cinching it around kind of their hips. And so you get more of a split between there. And that's what I would adjust here. I think that's why we're getting this kind of look. And I did some changes on that. Let me pull this out. Also, we're going to talk about these other changes, the jacket as well. First up is just trying to paint out the current belt so I can do a little edit on it. And then here are some of the other changes. Got the same belt, just moved it down. All right. And then the other one I have to question is I don't think that they would put a big leather belt with pouch over top of their duster. That just seems like an unusual call for me. So I would, if it was mine, I would put the duster over that. And I don't know.
It'll give you more movement too in the coat. You can paint it in a, more. It'll give it a little bit more power. Whereas if you tuck it in, it gives it more of a feminine vibe. Like that's more of a feminine style to cinch things at the waist and then have them spread out underneath. Whereas with more of a masculine feel is to leave things more loose here where the power is in the shoulders. So it's just a little, remark about it.
Yeah. A few minor changes are made up here. No, I just want a regular full brush, yeah. Looking up here is if you're to raise your arm up like that with that sort of jacket, it's really going to bunch up around the shoulder because you've just shortened that distance between the shoulder and the neck. And so you're going to get more big billows right there. And that's why I'll kind of bring that up. And his sleeve seemed a little too tight for this sort of overcoat. They're usually pretty loose. So I just filled out his sleeve over there a little bit, made his cuffs a little bit looser. So that's something I would look to do there. And then looking at the lantern, I don't think you really had any lantern refs here, but this is just a really good opportunity to bring some more color into the piece. It's very muted right now. I do like the idea of the lantern, but let's go ahead and pop in some more oranges, get some nice glow on that. And then we want to see a little bit of that on the character as well. Because if you're introducing a light source that the character is holding, in order to really help sell that light source, you need it interacting with the environment, which is the character. And if I were to just paint the light straight onto the character right now, it's not going to work so well because the face is already pretty light. So what I need to do is add a multiply layer and just drop a little more shadow onto the face. And then when I come in and add the light, you can see where it really helps sell that.
On your piece, since you have presumably everything separate in layers, or probably the background at least separate, you might even want to darken the background just a little bit, just turn it a little bit down so that pops even more, because it is kind of pretty bright back there, but that's just a minor thing.
Yeah, this is a common thing to do on a lot of these kind of standalone characters. If you do have that light source, just deepening that background a little bit so that illumination feels a little brighter. And on these, even if you look at the pro stuff, it's not 100% accurate. They're not going for 100% accuracy. They're going for just what is artistic.
What looks good.
Yeah, so whether these are the exact folds and the right patterns, probably not. You're just kind of using it where you want to in order for it to kind of work. So if you can take a photo reference that is close as possible, that's always handy. But yeah, fun character and really good work on this. Any other comments?
No, I think whose submission was this?
This was Alan Yu.
Alan, you did a lot of work, and you really did implement a lot of the feedback that you received. So yeah, kudos for that. We enjoy seeing that.
Yes, good work, Alan. That's it. Next up, where's my? Pull it up here. No, and then I'll cover up all my other stuff. Bjorn.
I don't know if Bjorn is here.
Don't know if he is or not. Now, Bjorn really came up with this final within the last 2 weeks. So previously he sent in some post studies, and we had this design right here was his concept submission. We both really liked the draftsmanship of it, but it obviously needed a proper pose to put it in, something a little more three-dimensional, something more natural. And that's just fine. You're well, this is a good way to do character design. Do it on a flat kind of basic pose to just work out what the costume is going to be. And then it's adapting that to a more natural position. So that's where we are here.
Yeah, so basically it looks like it was all done over again from scratch. There's a new pose. A lot of the feedback was implemented as well. So yeah, really good work. Bjorn, you did a lot the last 2 weeks.
I do like the pose reference you have here. A lot of people don't take the time to do that. You did your homework when you designed the character before that. So you're getting some really strong results. On this one, we're going to be a little more picky than what we are on some of the others because that's just where you're at. So here we're getting more into the a little more into the rendering of the character. Because you seem to have the workflow, you have an idea of how to approach that. We're getting pretty muddy overall. So we're looking at kind of a values, lighting, color, primarily through the bottom half.
It's a little murky.
Yeah. There's just not good separation between anything. And we need to get some better value separation. You can do color, but once you get so dark, color separation isn't enough. And we need to try to pull out more differences there. Okay, other things that we want to address. I do have some paint over of this just to show you a quick thing in a minute. Other things is the face. Right now, we've got...
It's not a bad face.
No, it's not.
It's actually quite good. But we just want to show you how to make it even better.
Exactly. In every one of these guys, what we're wanting to do is just show you what the next step is. It doesn't matter what your skill level is. Doesn't matter what you know, what you don't know.
It's not because we think it's bad. It's
No.
just how would we push it a little further.
Yep. Just want to show you what the next step is. So the next step, I think one of the things that would elevate it is improving the face a little bit. Here the eyes are getting too small. We're basically getting 2 eye widths in between the eyes. And there should be one. It should be eye width, 1 eye width between the eyes, and 1 eye width. Now, you can get away with that in the right kind of stylistic rendering, but you're going for realism with everything else. So that's kind of what we're going to judge it on. So I have some work on that. So here what we want to do is really kind of decrease how much darks you have. How heavy and dark is the shadows. This earlier version that you had is actually close to what you need to pull it back to. So here you can tell just at a glance, the gold, the blue, the gray, these are separating out a lot better just at an initial glance. So we want to pull that back.
So you're just going to need to bring some color back in.
So I did a little overpaint, and all I'm trying to do is pull out those base colors. I switched the panels to silver, I guess. I didn't realize they were supposed to be gold initially. And then up here, just what you want to think about is every object has a particular value range and color range that it can exist in. And you don't want to be really careful about letting it drop too far out of that range. The only time it should really be getting like near black is when it's under a proper occlusion shadow, like way up underneath the panel immediately against the fabric. Now that's going to be black. But otherwise, don't let the shadow get so black. And that should give you a better just overall read. All right. Any thoughts on that stage? I'll look at the face.
No, it's
here.
just a little subtle increase in the saturation and raising the value a little bit. So it's not like an enormous contrasty value jump.
Yeah.
But each section, and also something to keep in mind is that each material or each local, or each object, each item has a local value, right? It has its own local color, local value. So keep that in mind to make them different. You know, metal is going to have a different local value than a purple tunic, right? So you can see the way Clint overpainted here with the tunic being a darker muted value, not super dark, but darker, and then on top the metal having a higher base value.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Is the base values should always stay the same distance from each other, right? If silver has a higher value than the fabric, whether
it shouldn't be the same value.
Yeah, whether it's in the light or whether it's in the shadow, there still should be that same separation of value. Unless it gets to black, everything just, you know, crunches back down to the same color. So, then with the face,
just to let people in chat are talking about you know, how to get in on these challenges. Just to, so everyone's aware, if you missed the first part, the next one will probably be towards the end of November after we finish up the fall classes. So if you're interested in participating in the next one, just be aware to kind of check the YouTube video. I don't know, do you usually send out any kind of announcement on the mailing list for these?
Yeah, I'll usually send out an announcement on the mailing list and just email everybody. But I'll put posts on the YouTube channel, and I'll probably do an announcement video on the YouTube channel, letting everybody know.
Just have to kind of be paying attention because they do sell out really fast. Like it was just a couple of days and they were gone. So anyway.
But if you're looking for more feedback and you're interested in character design, she's running the character design in 2 weeks.
We designed it together, but I'm running it, yes.
And you'll get exactly this sort of feedback every week. You know, looking at your work, giving you this sort of feedback. Okay, so these are some of the changes I was looking at on the face. Trying to scale the eyes up so you have a more of a normal eye to face ratio. And let me turn. Oh, wrong one. Here we also had kind of an odd extra fold at the top of the eyes, the nose there. I'm trying to move this on screen so it's a little bigger. So I would take that one out because once you zoom out, it just looks like 3 hash marks at the top of the nose, which is a little odd. And also looking at this shape is a little too simple. Right? What you're probably going to get is an angle change here. It's going to come off of the nose area, the nasal fold, and then it's going to hit the muzzle of the mouth area. And it's actually going to have kind of another separate curve that goes here. And here we're having the cheekbones coming way too far down. And they ought to be a little higher here. And then you could have your, you know, sallow shadow, cheek shadow right there. But we want to make sure we don't have them actually running too far down. At this distance, you're not really going to have that pop of light in the eye. It's probably going to...
Even a blue eye, even an icy blue eye, it's still quite dark in the shadows. It's a lot darker than you would think. And that's the thing a lot of students do. Is they just, if they're painting a blue or green eye, like a light eye, they'll just make it super light. And it's typically not that light. It's not as light as you think it'll be.
The other thing is with the skin tone. Right now, the skin tone is too contrasty. We're getting more into the hard plastic range if you're talking about materials, where it's brightening up a lot in the highlights and it's getting very dark very quickly. Skin is a little more matte than this. It falls into the luster range. And so over here, I've just tried to even that out a little bit more so it's not quite as bright in the highlight areas, the bright areas.
And it gives a little bit more richness to the face than when
Yeah.
it's super high contrast. It just makes it more fleshy to tone it down a bit.
All right. The final thought that we had was with the headpiece. I don't. This is a minor thing, but I don't feel like this is adding a lot. I feel like if you want to have it there, then scale it up and like really make it a thing, or just take it off. I don't think you're going to really lose anything by.
I think your initial design actually, with just the chainmail, was nice, was stronger. Like
Over here?
this one right here, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would just remove the little roll donut, and I think it would be pretty strong like that.
Do want to give you kudos for a really cool shoulder piece right here. Really like that. It's nice.
Very, very nice. And the fact that you posed him kind of doing something, wiping the blade, you know, that's not something that a lot of people, you know, would think of doing.
Yep. I would recommend coming in here and clarifying some of this hand stuff. This is getting almost like you can't really understand what's going on there. I wouldn't overthink it too much. I would just let this silver just stay brighter. Let the stuff in the shadow behind it just be darker. And this is where we can just be illustrative, forget what would be 100% realistic. We just need the shape to make sense. So we can do something like that. And then the hand can stay a little brighter, you know, in here. And then whatever the background is behind the hand, you basically do darker. And so you're running with kind of three colors. The metal's always brighter, the hand's kind of a medium, the background is dark. And from a distance, you want to be able to read that change a lot easier, even if it's not 100% accurate. It would be illustratively better. So even that, just really quickly, you can kind of tell what's going on there. Okay, got to be moving on. Bjorn, excellent work.
I think Bjorn asked for, you know, areas of improvement. I just want to say real quick that it's hard for us to make a judgment like that just based on one piece. But since I'm going to see you in class in 2 weeks anyway, at that point, if you have some pieces, other pieces ready that I could take a look at, then we can maybe analyze your work at that point in time, give you some better direction, but we'll talk about that in class.
All right. This is Simon. Simon probably stuck almost the closest to his original concept. We didn't really have any major changes with Simon's piece. The pose worked, the overall colors and shapes and stuff worked. He did make the change to the mask and took out the extra swirl on the side. So I think it's better without that swirl. Reads easier from a distance. This is another one that it actually has a really nice finish on it. The lighting is good for straightforward lighting for a character like this. The rendering is pretty clean. A little brush stroking. I like that. It's good. It's illustrative. I didn't have access to my usual setup. Had fun. Okay. So from here, again, no big changes here, but let's just talk about what we can do to push it a little further. And what is it that is kind of catching our attention that would need to be dealt with? One of the first things that I would look to deal with is the head, the face, and particularly the skin tone. We were both chatting about the skin tone.
Yeah, it's hard. Okay, firstly, it's kind of hard to know what you're aiming for, Simon, because right now it's like according to your reference, you have for faces, you have kind of like these Nordic faces, almost like Scandinavian, Northern European types, and then in your character, he's reading to me more Native American, maybe Indonesian look, but even it doesn't matter really which skin tone you're going for. Right now, he's very purple. So you have to kind of look into correcting that. Now, Clint assumed, based on your references, that you wanted to go for a Caucasian type. I don't know if that's what you were aiming for. We're just going by what you provided. Yeah. So if that's the case, then you would need to correct the skin tone a little bit. Do you want to show them what you did?
Yeah, okay, so I just copied out the skin itself, and then I can just modify that on its own layer. First up, the whole value is too dark. So I'm going to bring up the highlights a little bit. I don't want to go too high or you're going to get blown out, but I'll bring up the highlights a little bit, and then I'll bring up the mediums some. So that'll help at least get it first in the value range.
Okay, he was going for Caucasian.
Okay. And then, like she said, purple. Too much purple in it, so color balance exactly where I'd go. And don't forget, particularly in Caucasian skin, there's a lot more green in it than you think.
When you don't add in those greens and grays into the skin, it tends to look like plastic. So this is not a criticism of you, Simon. I remember I painted many portraits like that when I was starting out before I realized what was wrong. And it really is just a lack of color variation in the skin. So for anyone watching, if you're painting a portrait and it looks really plasticky, it's because you're just using kind of one color all over everything, and there needs to be more subtle color changes in the skin to avoid that like artificial look.
Something else you can do is come in here and do that color variation like she's talking about. I'll set a color layer over this. Then I can just paint in some other colors. I'm going to set it up higher opacity for the layer just so you can see it to start with, and I'll set it back down. I'm going a little bluish for the chin area. I'm going to go more reddish, slightly to the violet side for the ear. And then we're going to get kind of the violet and red, a little cooler around the eyes. Those capillaries just have a slightly bluish tint to them. And then a little warmer around the cheeks. And then usually you get slightly more yellow on the forehead. Now that's obviously too much. Looks like he's wearing clown makeup or something. But then if you set it down low, though, it's subtle. And it just keeps it from being, like she said, looking like a plastic doll.
I can't really see it at this angle, so I'm just trusting you. I can't see. The screen is tilted, and it's just...
Still probably get that.
I wanted to mention, too, that for darker skin tones, the color map is totally different.
Yes.
And Clint put a ton of time into actually making an awesome color map for dark skin, and he's going to show it in his portrait painting class. So those of you who signed up for that class are going to get like some really awesome material for dark skin, because it's so hard to find good painting material.
We both have had to do it in the past and could not find any good references for
never found it. And the yellow, red, and grayish blue map for the lighter skin tones does not work.
Apply.
It doesn't work. It can work in some cases, but it's just not as good as the one that Clint developed, which is much more accurate. So I'm really excited for anyone taking that class. I won't be in that class, but I've seen the material, and it's really good.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and it's super helpful. Like, it's probably the first really good digital painting color map for dark skin.
Still feel like that should be just a little bit.
Just pump them up a little bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, so here's the sort of change we're looking at, right? And once you kind of contrast it against what it could look like, then the changes seem, you know, more obvious.
Mhm.
But okay, other things. Uh, I would just be looking at improving the shape and the silhouette slightly on this. Um, oh, that was the earlier version. So on these, I'm going to just give myself a brush here. Look to try to make the silhouette just a little more interesting. Here, I think maybe you would see the back. Oh, this. I think maybe you'd see part of that back one over there as it goes back around. And once you come down to the bottom, it should probably kick out a little bit. Like I'm looking at, there's probably a fold right there, so that might have a buckle in it. And this is going to hang. And that sleeve, that white piece is probably not going to overhang exactly where the sleeve is. So we might want to have a slight difference to that. It's a small thing, but it's nice. Same thing here. Just want to accent the changes in some of those. Same thing on this. Like I want part of this to pop out and then go back, and then it probably is going to pop out again a little bit and then come down. Same thing on this side, it's probably going to pop out and then have a slower come down over there. And you can see just by kind of turning that on and off, it's just a more interesting set of shapes. And it also tells you what the folds are doing from a silhouette. Mm-hmm. This is also, I'm thinking, I'm not a big fan of it starting thin and getting the same all the way down. I thought it would accent a little better if it actually is kind of more open at the top. And then it came to being closer around the belt.
On that note, one minor critique that I have is just, Simon, for you to be aware. Can I just hold this for a minute? I just want to point out one little thing here, which is when you're making a character, realize that, how do I zoom out on this? Okay. That when you're adding elements to the, design elements to your costume, that you're adding a lot of things that are about like this width, very similar widths all over the place with the rope. They're not that different. If you add, some skinny ones, anything small, and also maybe some larger shapes, that would help to kind of make it more interesting. So instead of a skinny belt,
you can alt if you want to.
Yeah. Let's say.
Oh, like a broad sash.
Yeah, or even we could do it in white. Let's say, something like that. Just to have something of a different thickness in there. I know it doesn't look super great right now, but...
No, I'll follow what you say, though. Again, there's a lot of sameness of thicknesses and sizes for everything.
Or even getting in here and adding, like, a thin line to go next to that one, just to kind of add a little something extra. Like, I kind of liked what you had going on here, where you had, like, some interesting embellishments happening, just so it wasn't all the same the whole way. So this is just something to think about here, where you have this transition, you could have some lines or some seams going in different directions. So what I'm saying is you have a lot of things that are like the same width all over, especially in gold, and it just makes the character, not look as realistic because everything's the exact same width. So it might be worth it, also doing, let's say, what color to pick here, but because you don't have the wheel. like I do, so this is a different setup. But no, that's not going to work. But doing skinnier things in here or in here, to add big, medium, and small shapes to your design, to have some some differences. So that's just a minor critique, but proportions. He also does feel a little bit top heavy. So just adding like a sash in there or something would give him a little bit more structure to the rest of him. But that's, a minor.
Yeah,
minor
really good points. All right, Simon, I hope you found that helpful, and I really like seeing your piece. Even to implement everything that we just said wouldn't be that much time. You've already put in 90% of the work. Everything after this would be kind of minor. So hope you can find the time to do that, and we'll move on to the next one. Wojciech. Or my butchering of that name?
Wojciech.
Sorry.
I think it's Wojciech.
Wojciech. Okay, this one, the original concept was here, so there's been some minor changes.
I like the patterns, I gotta say.
Patterns are good, the colors are good. I think you did pick a good color scheme for the character, referencing basically kind of a combination of these two, which go together quite well. And yeah, just the older character, kind of a bigger guy. That's nice, I like it. So major feedback here is I still feel like a proper anatomy was not drawn under the form. The proportions, yeah, seem off, where
the legs seem very, very long.
Yeah, by putting the belt this high, you kind of indicate that everything below the belt is leg. In which case, this as much is leg, and this is all the upper body. And it just feels odd.
We know it's not what you intended, but it's just kind of how it reads because of the placement of the sash.
Yep.
But the main issue is with the reference, right? With the angle.
Yeah, this is a good reference for a pose. It's a standard kind of standing pose. But the problem comes up where you change the angle of your reference photo. So you have this guy with his body turned to the side, and the reference, you're looking straight at the guy.
Then you had to rotate the arm as well.
Yeah. And so this guy's arm's going back and then coming forwards, and this guy's arm is not really doing that. And the biggest lesson here is don't try to rotate your pose reference. If the pose reference isn't at the right angle for you, go take a new pose reference or go make one.
It is possible to do that, but you have to be like really solid with your anatomy and your, turning 3D objects in space in your mind before drawing them that way. So it's one thing to make minor differences, to like move the position of the arm or maybe move the position of the head, the tilt of the head. But when you're rotating the whole body like that, that will cause problems for anyone.
Yeah, because like if the angle of my arm, being up like this when I'm facing you versus when I'm turned, it doesn't just turn the angle of my chest, it changes the entire perspective of all of my limbs. And if you're like a master at anatomy, you can pull that off.
Like Tom Fox or somebody.
Yeah, but even both of us know that it's better to it's faster to just get a reference or to follow a reference
that's already 90% of the way there. It doesn't have to be perfect reference, but it should be 90% of the way there. And
like for instance here, you change the head, tilted the head, the age of the character, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. That's usually what's going to happen. You're going to find one major body pose, but you're going to have a completely different head, maybe different hands, maybe different arm positions. You can change those more with less difficulty. So that would be my major suggestion for the improvement of the character. Next up is, and I do have a couple of little changes here. I can pull those up. Oh, actually, I do have these references.
These are these from Satine?
I think these are Satine.
Yeah, these are from Satine Zilla on ArtStation. Very similar quality level to Graphite Studios. We use both of them. Their reference packs are really, really great. But these two are from Satine, and those packs have some really good kind of standard hero poses, different body types of guys.
So in this case, you wouldn't be using either of the character designs. Those aren't the characters you're looking for. You're not wanting to do a Viking dude over there. But the body type is very close. The basic standing pose is close. Even their head is turned back the right direction. So you could reference a lot off of that and basically just dress one of these guys with your other wardrobe.
Yeah, it's like paper dolls.
Yeah. So Satine, yeah, we have a number of her photo packs. They're really good.
Really good.
And the face right now is, and the face / head is too short. So it seems very scrunched compared to the overall proportion of the body. To kind of address that, you had your face reference down there. So I just copied that and pasted it up here and put it to the same width as the head you've already did. So the width is already accurate, but look how long the face is. And this is what you want to do. And this is what we both do, is we get our reference and we'll put it right next to our drawing. Not that we want to copy it, but we at least want to check to make sure the proportions are right, the angles are right.
You don't want to be too far off. Like you can freestyle and change many things, but the proportions should be, close to the reference so that you're not way off.
So just a quick overpaint, just trying to lengthen the head out a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's a lot better, and it fits the proportion. Oh wow, it's just going crazy there. It fits the proportion of the body a lot better when you lengthen it out, because he goes from being like 10 or 11 head lengths tall to being, more like your normal 7 or 8 by making that sort of change. Yeah, notice that guy. And I would probably, if it was mine, I would suggest putting the belt lower. He probably put it under his belly.
There is already some of that happening, over here.
Yeah.
In one of the studies, your belt was a bit lower.
Yeah, I would go with that. I was also just playing around with the idea of him having like an extra sash to break up that shape. Otherwise, it's just like a big yellow shape with nothing on it. So I thought maybe he had an extra tie or something. But yeah, you could have like another one that's a little higher than that coming in, and that could work. It could be a little bit, but I would just be questioning about moving it that high up. And if you did, you probably don't want it arcing up. It would literally have to be over his entire belly in order to get an you'd have to have a big belly, and it would have to be on top of his belly to get an up arc. So otherwise, you're probably going to be looking for a downward arc on the, I forget what layer is what. All right, good stuff. Good. Any other thoughts?
I like what you did, applying the patterns, shading them. I maybe would have I think you need a little bit more time on rendering, especially that outer kind of robe, that area, just breaking it up a little bit more, kind of like your reference has here, where it's just, there's more fabric folds.
Oh yeah, over here.
Yeah, and clarifying kind of that sleeve is another thing I would do.
That one?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The red part, because I think it's a split sleeve, or it appears to be. So that's the thing. It's like I don't actually know how this works. So it might be worth kind of going in here and just clarifying, okay, how low does it go? Where is the contact point with the rest of the robe? Does it open in two pieces? Is it just one piece? It's kind of hard to tell. Right now you have it kind of just this round shape, which is kind of strange in here.
No, it's like it's following the arm, but only behind the arm, so I'm not really sure how that works.
I would just cut it, Wojciech. I would just have it fall, and let the yellow sleeve bend, and let the red sleeve just fall down. And then the other thing is I would grab where's his actual painting? Is it here? Okay. I would just grab a bit of this. Oh, you have it on polygonal lasso. Okay. And how do I don't have the how do I control J it on this thing? Command J? Okay. Sorry, I'm not used to using a Mac, so I don't know what's going on here. I'm trying to do my my Windows shortcuts on this thing, and I can't really do it.
I don't know what you're trying to do yet.
Well, I'm trying to move it, on this on this shoulder here, but it's quite difficult. I hate Macs. Can anyone tell that I hate Macs? Okay, so
give her time; she'll come around.
No, I don't think so. It's a little bit off center for the costume, this shoulder piece. So I would bring it more into here, and so that you have kind of the center line of your costume kind of happening here, and your shoulder piece more to this side. So that means, repairing some of the stuff here.
Yeah, she's showing is like the shoulder piece was falling way over top of the left chest area.
What I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So it obviously might be too big out here. Like I'm not at my desk, and I can't really move things the way I would want to move them properly, but you can get the idea that
makes
it just makes a little bit more sense to get in here and move this thing in a more symmetrical way. It's not that the pelt couldn't be asymmetrical. It would just be harder to get on, and it does have kind of a symmetrical chain holding it together. So I would just move it a little bit for clarity and like recenter the decorative items, like bring that in here, kind of make sure that those line up. So to kind of follow the shape of the chest, right?
Very good.
So yeah, no, overall you did some good work. Nice pattern application. Just a few tweaks, but for everyone, finding the right reference that's already 90% resolved will save you a lot of time and fixing things later on.
Okay, this one is in by Christina. Hey, Christina. I have to say, huge improvement.
Huge.
Over here, if you missed it last time, guys, top right, this is the concept. And this is what we made some suggestions about the costume, about the pose. And I have to say that you obviously put in a lot of time and even got some new reference photos down here.
That is pretty much the best reference that you could find for exactly this. That was spot on.
Yep. Really good stuff here. So, where do we go from here? A lot of attention has been put into, like, I love the subtle patterning going on here. A lot of people don't get that right. Even tackling lace. Just makes one shudder.
It does.
It does say, I know the position of the right arm is off. Had to rush to get it done. Struggled most with making design elements bolder, like a
Mm.
larger embroidery. I didn't say
Well,
it's.
she's comparing it to go down to these, right?
Yeah, I assume on the bottom left is
Mm-hmm.
trying to get more of that sort of influence down there. Yeah. Overall, the character's sort of poshness is coming across quite
It is
well.
coming across.
So, uh, details are usually on the bottom of my list of things of like, if I were to
Yeah.
critique something, things that are going to make the biggest difference, details are like
It's not usually
way
the
down the list.
details. So the embroidery is something that you can kind of fudge with just
Mm-hmm.
suggestion, like little strokes, or even you can find, pattern brushes or texture brushes
Mm-hmm.
that will do the work for you. So that's not something to worry about too much. It's more the larger things.
Yeah, so for this, what I would want to do is try to get a little more out of the pose, a little more accuracy out of it,
Uh-huh.
a little more gesture out of it. Because I think that you actually have, like we said, some good stuff going on in this pose of reference.
That's a super pose reference. It's exactly
Yeah.
what we were aiming for last time.
So what I'm particularly picking up here that we're not getting in the drawing is that the chest is has more of an upward arc to it. We're kind of looking up at the character a little more. It also has more of this sort of chest out pose. It's chest forward,
Mm-hmm.
and we're getting this sort of dynamic. It's like a really shallow S curve as the leg is kind of coming back. And a similar thing here, it's not quite as S, but there's definitely this lean back and kind of curve to it. And that's not what we're really getting here. We're just getting this sort of straight down thing. And this is where it can be good to do a gesture drawing of your pose before you start drawing all of your
You can just
stuff.
gesture it right over the photo.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. You're just trying to find out where it's pushing outward and turning inward.
Yeah, right here, like Diana is saying, drawing over it. I've done this many times in my professional work. I will have my pose reference, and I will draw my kind of line of action over my pose reference in order to identify that and make sure that I don't miss it when I get to my drawing. I don't want to repaint your whole thing, so I just copied and pasted and did some warping. First is with the leg. That leg I felt like was getting too far out. That leg is carrying most of the weight. If we look over here and we make a straight line down from the neck, it lands right on that heel. And that means that that leg is carrying all of the weight. This leg is just an accessory. That's why he's posing off the
Yeah,
foot.
it's just a decorative, like little ballet leg.
Yep. So, but we don't have that over here if we run a straight line down. That foot is not under the neck, so we know that it's not carrying the weight. So I try to get that a little closer by bringing it back at least that far. Anything more than that would start like I'd really have to do some work. Then I copied and pasted the chest and ran a warp on that to get a little more curvature. So there we're getting a little
Also
more.
gives more that proud look, right, that your
Yeah.
character's going for.
Oh, wrong. No, computer. This one.
Mac is great.
There we go. Mac is great. I'm glad you agree. Okay, next up, just kind of drawing corrections, and that would be looking at the angle of the hat. This is a common thing that people get wrong. I notice it because I've got it wrong numerous times
I
myself.
get it wrong too. Hats are, they take some double, triple checking.
Run a line that matches the angle of the face. So I just looked at the angle of the eyes, I drew a line, that's the angle of the head. Now the hat needs to match that same angle, and what we notice is that this end is a little below that line, and this end is a little above that line, which means that the hat is crooked on the head. So if we just correct that, now that's more accurate. There we go. Matches the angle of the head. Then the next thing is a lot of time has been put into a lot of these beautiful details, and I think the next thing that really needs to be elevated is the face. The face right now has a sort of really flat lighting to it, but also has a kind of odd lighting to it. I assume that you're playing off of some of this, because we actually have an underlight on the nose. The underside of the nose is brighter, but yet we also have shadow under the brows, which is kind of two conflicting lighting directions. So what I did was I just copied this guy's head and I pasted it up here to be a little closer. And you could use that as your lighting reference, because it's basically just a frontal lighting, which is fine. We do want to note that there are two distinct directions to go from right here with the face. And it could be normal guy with this sort of lighting, or it could be like pushed further. I don't know how much of a...
We didn't know how flamboyant you wanted him to be. So in that time period, obviously, like one movie that came to mind was like Amadeus, right? Or the Mozart movie. So some of the characters would have, not really much makeup at all, and then some would have over-the-top makeup. So we really weren't sure how made up you wanted him to go. So you could go to this territory, which is like the white makeup with the very, very noticeable red, rouge cheeks and the overdrawn eyebrows. It's almost a bit like almost a drag makeup, somewhere between like a drag makeup and a clown makeup. It's similar to that, where the lips are just very small and overpainted, and the guys would kind of wear that makeup and the women would wear that makeup. So I don't know if you wanted to go there or if you wanted more of a just everyday look to the guy. We didn't know how far to push it, so you could go in either direction. But I think you just went a little bit further. Yeah.
Just using that one reference images over here and kind of stealing off the lighting and the colors off of that. I did a paint over of the face, using as much as I could, and then just kind of changing the lighting and stuff. And I think that would really help to sell the piece better.
It gives it a little bit more form, three-dimensionality to the face, so it's not so uniform.
I do agree with Christina's comment that this arm does need some work, so do make sure that you do get back to...
Look at the reference and kind of judge where it is. So on the reference, it looks like it's really squarely on the hip, just below the waist, whereas yours is coming really in front of the character.
Yeah, that's the biggest part, is the overlapping, right?
Yeah, it shouldn't overlap. The hip should be in front of it, actually.
So you'd have that, and then you might see a little bit of the hand, like here. I also don't know that you would see that back there. It seems maybe a little too much. I think the body would just be overlapping the hand. You would just see maybe a little bit of the side of the finger over there. And that would be about it. So if you love not painting hands, this is a really good reason for you not to paint a hand.
You don't have to paint it. So another thing I would think about is, oh gosh, I hate using your shortcuts. Is also getting in here with, where is your color wheel? I have no idea where I am. With like some kind of, see, this is not the color I want, but I wanted to add a little occlusion shadow in there if you could. And then another thing is to maybe
extend, the one little finger.
Extend the pinky for extra daintiness. I know that looks terrible. I just cannot control this screen. So anyway.
I was aiming for noticeable makeup and rouge, but wanted to avoid a clown look.
Yeah, it's a fine line, Christina. It has to be really, really well referenced. So that reference we just got from the Phantom of the Opera movie. It's like a scene where people have that makeup. but you could probably like research it more and find a better
Hmm.
one, or from like those people doing reenactments or whatever. They have it cleaner, really showing exactly where the makeup is and how like there's differences for the men and women. So you don't want to go too far on the man, but it's it's doable. You could still, if you have a solid face, then painting the makeup on top is very easy and quick. You just need to find like a good, accurate reference for that particular style of makeup. But yeah, some occlusion shadows are kind of missing. Um, and then yeah, the pinky is just, just a fun little thing. You don't have to add the pinky. I would though.
Well, yeah, it's a fun extra. No,
And I would add extra lace. I would just add more, but yeah, they say less is more, but for me, more is more.
This is a really good character. There's a lot of games, if you're looking at getting in the industry that need good historical sort of characters, and a lot of artists doing stuff now that are learning are doing these super fantastical stuff, and they're just not as well grounded as this is. So if you do enjoy this sort of thing, man, get good at it. And there's definitely need for people that have good kind of like historical knowledge for costumes and clothing. Beautiful stuff.
Yeah, you did a lot of work, so
yeah,
good job. Yeah, it's a lot of effort.
This is from Clayton. All right. Clayton did not as much change from the draft, like he didn't like repose it or anything like that. Just took some of our suggestions. The initial drawing was over here with this dude. Made a couple of variations. I think he had a black and white last time.
I believe so.
But now we got some color. Hi, thoughts on AI art? We literally have an entire video about that.
If we can't talk about it anymore, people will hate us. So
yeah.
If you want to know, you can watch all our opinions on the other video.
We have opinions. Just go check that out. So this, and yeah, noting that this was the sort of style direction that they're going for. Definitely more stylized than a lot of the other ones we've been looking at. So as we give feedback, that's the sort of direction we're trying to take it. Did say, how can I improve my values? Thank you. To me, when I'm looking at it, same thing that we looked at that other piece, which is we're getting too muddy, too much in the shadow. I get it small, and I'm losing what that is. I'm losing edges. I don't know what the bottom half of that character looks like. So for this sort of rendering especially, what you can do is, instead of just making something darker in order to put it in the shadow, you can also shift the colors, usually cooler. And that would be my suggestion is, don't make it as dark, just make it half as dark as you normally would, and then shift the colors to more of a bluish direction. And I'm not going to talk too much about the rendering or the rest of it. The rendering is good, and I feel like they know what they're doing with that. So I'd start with this piece. So here, again, like, what is the local value of that? All right, now I think you picked probably too many brownish things for the lower half. You've got kind of this dark olive sash, and then you have brown leather straps, and then you have kind of a brownish, maybe that's the sash thing. So everything down here is more to the neutral brown side. And I would mimic the colors up here. Yeah. So you're looking at that white and the gold, but you're reversing it down here where the white is in the middle and the gold is on the edges. And that gold is allowing those edges of the different pieces to pop a little bit because they're going to be catching some highlight. That alone helps break up a lot of those shapes. Next, that arm. I feel like that arm is getting too dark. We're losing a lot of that skin tone. So again, you can see where both of these have shifted into the cooler ranges. There's more blues, violets, greens, cooler colors. Same thing on that other arm. We're getting very dark very quickly. And I still think that that central light effect works, even if the hand isn't quite as dark on the end. And then just brightening the feet up. Here is where we get to the point where if somebody has their monitor not at the brightest setting, like you might not even really make out the feet.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time.
And what that means is you put a lot of time into drawing and rendering that stuff, and it won't even be visible to some people. So bring it up a little bit. And again, we're shifting it to that cooler side to help indicate this is shadow. And the last one is just bringing all of that up a little more into the midtones. There's more color in the midtones. And then we can check the black and white. It still works in black and white. Right? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of compare the black and white of both of them. Otherwise, the line work is nice and clean. And
I would add more of a little shadow to your beard sections because they are just pure white.
Yeah.
So that's just a little something extra that you could add to really make it pop like the rest of the character pops. Like you did an excellent job on the face and the muscles, making that pop. Just the beard is a bit flat. And get in there with a blue color and just pop out the form shadow. Like that.
And this is such a chunky drawing, like you can really pull out the forms really well on this. And try to add some color in there that'll be good. I'm trying to think if you want like a warm transition color. Maybe it's more to the green side.
Yeah, really nice. It really has a like sculptural feel to the face.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about this just earlier, was with a friend, and that is a lot of need for stylized characters in the industry right now. If you can do stylized characters, you will find work if you're competent at it. I feel like we should be getting some more shadow here. Not having quite enough shadow there. Personally, maybe you just did this as stylistic, but like the nose is almost touching the eyes. I feel like the eyes are just too low. And we have like the crown like up higher, so if we were to move them up a little bit, I think we'd get a better result.
A little bit more power to the face.
Yeah, feels a little better.
Might even be a little too high.
Yeah. Scrunch it down a little bit.
Yeah. Split the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems nice.
Very nice.
Good image. If you do want to do this side light, I mean, that's a common thing to do in these sort of illustrations, but I would lean into it more. Right now, it's almost like either get rid of it or do more with it. And it is a great way in order to tell forms in areas that are getting dark. So like come in here and actually use it. And usually with this sort of stylization, you don't need to worry about trying to tint something that color. Like even though this skin is, you know, kind of a sandy color, don't worry about trying to tint it to the cyan. Just make it cyan. And you can get away with that in this sort of illustration. And we're just using it to help tell.
You're not going for realism here,
Yeah.
so you don't have to worry about that.
You could have kind of a, I think, core shadows sort of coming down there.
Yeah, you kind of need it if you're popping lights on both sides.
Oh boy. And again, this is where you can do that sculptural approach, right? You're pulling out the individual planes and make it feel like it has lots of volume because of how you're catching both sides of the object with different lights. And another thing with this sort of stylized approach, and I might be getting off a little bit from the style that you're wanting, I'm not sure, is infusing it basically with as much color as you can. And that's what we're trying to do right here, is infuse more color into the character.
Sam, you can just send any questions about the courses to either of us to the emails that are listed on the site. So those are the right ones.
So just even that right there, you can see how that left side of the character just pops so much more and just has better color, better volumes with that sort of change.
So you got a nice spotlight on the face and the chest, and then you've got that nice secondary light, blue light, kind of popping out the other side. It just gives it a little something extra. Mm-hmm. Not that it was wrong before.
No, and I mean, you can go overboard with that sort of thing.
Yes.
But like here, this is where I would also, like this is facing up towards the light. And it's already starting to gray out.
You're just having fun painting his painting now. It's very nice. Yeah. A lot of fun.
All right, good stuff. Next up, Nitor.
It's
Nito.
Nico.
Character is not finished. Still need a cleanup pass and a render on the hands, shoes, and hair. Feedback last time was super helpful. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. Main concern is material rendering, especially the worn, not super shiny gold. Thanks for the feedback. Okay.
I like your tunic, that it's lengthened and it's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, the helmet looks more interesting now. That's good. Not a big change from last time. Don't think it needed a big change from last time. Just address the different points that we talked about, put a batch of new hours into it, and just kind of did some more rendering on it. I would agree, yeah, it's not there yet. It does need more work. Face is feeling pretty good.
It's a nice face.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I do want to mention the quilted stuff is I feel like it's almost being taken too far. It almost seems too puffy. Um, and so I would probably take that back a little bit.
It's kind of so puffy that it's becoming a little distracting.
Yeah. So here,
It's a lot of what you've done now has gone maybe a little bit too far, where there's just a lot of texture on everything.
mm-hmm. Oh, that's cool. So I did some paint over here, primarily looking at these pieces down here, and kind of turn that on and off, and you can kind of see the difference there. What you're going to do is try to sell that quilting mainly around the actual, they're not rivets.
I don't know what those are called.
I'll call them rivets. I forget what they're actually called.
The studs or I don't know. They're not buttons, but the little, I want to call them buttons. I know they're not buttons, but the little metallic pins.
Brads? I don't know. So you mainly want to tell that around here by putting a little light on the underside, because that's where it's coming up, a little shadow on the top side, because that's where it's folding down to it. And then instead of running dark lines in between them, you kind of want to split the difference. That some of them are a little bit darker between them, and then other ones, it's more catching the light at the top of them rather than shadowing between them. So the tops of these on these planes would be catching more light. So I can do that. I don't necessarily need to do a light line and a dark line in order to sell that that's going down. Right? You can kind of do one or the other. And I think the light line is just a little more subtle. Another thing is, if this is dirty, then what you're going to see is the tops of these are actually going to get, I'm just picked a dark muted brown. The tops of these are going to get kind of dirtied up. And it's actually in the in-betweens that will stay a little cleaner, because the dirt can't quite get between those spaces as much. And it's just the rounded areas that are constantly touching things and getting dirty. But that depends how kind of worn you want it to look. So just look at your kind of quilting pattern options there. And it keeps it from getting too much. I feel like right now it's getting too much of heavy darks in areas that shouldn't be getting that dark.
It is also like a white background. It's a very kind of bright environment.
Yeah.
So going so dark like that is not really needed to give it volume. The other thing is, like you address this in your painter over, is just a lot of very bulky decorative shapes in the armor.
I was just thinking about brightening it up a little bit. Yeah. Bulky shapes in the armor?
Yeah, there's just a lot of, well, if you turn that off,
yep.
Let's see, that there's a lot of competition in that whole area with detailing.
This goes back, I think, on what you were saying on the other character, which is all of these lines are like the same thickness. Right, and so, I mean, I would suggest that some of these are much less. Some of them get very delicate. Maybe the little edge ones coming out are more delicate, but then other ones are much thicker. Otherwise, you get this sort of mono weight where...
It's normal. You know why this happens is because the person has, I do this too. The person has the brush at the same size.
Yeah.
And then they just keep adding things and it's all the same width because the brush size is the same. So you got to remember to change your brush size and keep the main arteries of your design thicker, and then where it sprouts off into other areas to make the brush smaller.
Yep. So that's what we're looking at on that is, go in there and add some variants. It's okay for some areas to be simpler. And other areas have a lot more, detail and varied shapes of detail.
One thing, Nito, I would consider is also you have some really cool stuff going on with that quilting. Got a nice face. Got very elaborate armor. But it is, even though everything is very decorated, the outfit overall is still pretty simple. So you don't have any belts. You don't have any whole, anywhere to put the sword, any
Mm-hmm.
pouches, no cape or any kind of draping, no belt or sash or straps. This kind of thing I'm talking about. It's still a very simple character, even though there's a lot of decoration on it. It's she's only really got the tunic and then armor on, and that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is just black gloves and black pants. So going a little bit further, just a little bit further to add that shape variety too. Something, since you've got so many stiff things, the reason I brought up a sash or a cape is it would be nice to have something flowy
Mm-hmm.
in there to kind of break up all that stiffness from the different items. You have so many thick things, having some thin things like a thin strap or a belt of a different thickness than what you've got going on the armor might add a little something. Adding a leather material to add a little more material variation in there.
Yeah, I like some of those ideas. It's like even if you just came in here, you're going with a character that already has some scars. The armor is supposed to already be worn, kind of weathered. So this isn't the first day on the job sort of character. So maybe we come in here and you're adding like some leather straps. Their bracer has been banged up, so they've got to reinforce it, right? And so you have some leather straps like over here, just to change it up a little bit. I agree. A scabbard might not be a bad idea, or a secondary, some sort of a secondary knife. Because a lot of knights they would have their main offensive weapon, a bit of pole arm or a sword or an axe or whatever, but then they're going to have a knife on them as well because as soon as you get it in the close combat, a knife is going to be what you use to kill your enemy, not your sword.
Well, not just that. We were watching this show recently. Remember the cooking show? Anyway, on YouTube. It's a
The
YouTube
things you learn
show.
in cooking shows.
And it was it was the historical cooking show, and they mentioned or the host mentioned that in medieval times everybody carried around a knife just for eating, just for cutting their own food, their own
Mm-hmm.
meat, their own cheese, or whatever. So they would always have every single person would just have a knife on them all the time. So that's just something to keep in mind that people would carry around tools with them, even if they weren't a knight necessarily.
Yeah, almost
But the knight would
everyone.
definitely have one.
Yeah, you'd have a knife. A lot of people would actually carry their own mug.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be given.
They carry you would have to bring your own cutlery, basically,
Yeah.
if you're going to go eat anywhere. They didn't have cutlery for people.
So some of this thing and like some kind of coin purse.
I don't know this for a fact, okay? I'm just saying what the cooking show guy said. So I don't know for sure if that was always that way, but that's the information that we got.
Yeah, but
Yes,
if you...
it's Max Miller's fault. Yes, exactly. If he's wrong, you guys can go on his YouTube channel and leave a comment.
But yeah, I mean, it has no connection to our channel. But yeah, Tasting History of Max Miller. It's really kind of interesting. It's half cooking show, half history, and how the cooking the recipes influence the time and all this stuff. We find it enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just saying, look at these character designs over here, and look at those extra items they carry. The extra knife, right? That we're just talking about. He's got that close-up knife right here. She's got the close-up knife. He doesn't have an extra knife, but he's got jars and books.
Well, he's got something.
Oh, yeah, he does have a knife.
Yeah, he does have a
right
butcher
there.
knife or something.
He's got a knife there. Here we have probably a coin purse. Here is the extra sword. Extra sashes. It would make sense to have an extra rope piece or something to tie things with.
Yeah, or a necklace with a memento of some kind. something like that to give it a little bit more uniqueness. Just possessions that a person would have.
Yeah. So those are some of the things that were kind of missing on this character. It's those little items that give a bit more of a fuller understanding of who they are. Yeah, that'd be fun. As far as the gold, if you're not going for shiny gold, and really what you want to do is just dull it down a lot. I think this is a nice reference right here. It's just from another piece. I didn't do that. But most of it is much duller, so you paint it as if it's kind of just painted in brown at first, like brown paint. Then you come back and just accent the edges with probably like a linear dodge. I didn't do that whole thing here. I did kind of a dull pass to it to just knock it down. One of the things that you want to avoid is these big bright lines where everything's a big bright line. It's not going to do that. So try to dull it down, and then we can see just for the kick's sake. Setting a linear dodge, and you can usually linear dodge like the same color back on top of it. And here it depends on the lighting, of course. We'll just kind of make it up. But you want to hit the edges like they're doing there. So it might be that all of these pieces are basically triangular, right? They just have a high edge and they're flat on both sides, and that might be a little easier to render because we're going to also kind of highlight there as well. And that's where you want to do most of your work, is just along the edges and try to bring that out. And you're just going to different parts that might be catching the light and trying to pull them out. You can also come down here and add in, he doesn't really have enough of the warms in the shadow. It should have more warms in order to help sell the gold. So I would do that here. I did add some more green into yours. You can see on that the shoulder area up there, there's like some green up there. So it'd be this one if you're looking at the webcam. Yeah. And anywhere it's reflecting back on itself, it's going to add the heat of that color back to itself. So these two gold pieces are going to reflect back on themselves, and so they're going to get hot. And it's sort of an aura thing, it bounces back up. So, I want to get a little more of that feel to it. And depending on how bright you're wanting it to get, you may push it too far and then kind of come back and paint some grime and dullness back on top of it. I was just seeing like if this top piece was actually...
Yeah, you can go shinier. It's just that you can't go shiny everywhere.
Yeah. So the rule of thumb here is in the lit, brighter, shiny areas, you let your lines, like your accent and embossed areas, be darker. So the lines are darker over the light areas and the lines are lighter over the dark areas. So down here, it's darker. So I'll come down here and I will make them brighter than the surrounding area, and they'll show up because they're brighter down here. And is this exactly what it would look like? No, this isn't. We're not doing realism, we're doing illustration. So, maybe something like that. Not going to work on a linear dodge layer. So you can get something on that line. I don't like that as much. Just simplify it.
Yeah.
Simplify it.
It's kind of hard too because this does lag a lot when we're trying to paint on it, and so it's like we have a hard time seeing what's really coming out.
Yeah, you can get kind of a metal, effect doing that sort of thing. Like I was saying though, if that's not quite what you're going for, then you just come back in and you just start glazing it over with some grime, right? And that's all right. You just start dulling it back, basically just putting a layer of dirt over it, obscuring it some. And see what you get.
And that's like a dark brownish gray.
Yep. Excellent direction. Right now, it's just, give it another 20 hours and start refining it and developing some other small items to it.
Yep.
Going to have a really lovely piece.
And just pay attention to your soft edges too, Nitos. For anyone, if it's too fuzzy anywhere, you need some more hard edges in there.
This one got a complete repose of the character. Character design overall is still almost the same. It's very similar. But originally had this pose, which didn't really fit for just a standalone kind of character illustration. It was because it lacked context for what was going on. So we suggested that if they wanted to, they could repose the character in something a little more straightforward. So they did, which of course meant starting from scratch.
This is another person who did like a ton of work, and we salute you.
Yes.
You redid everything, so that's no small thing. We wanted to point out that there was a lot of effort put in.
Nito, you're welcome. Thanks so much for joining in the challenge. I've loved having you in the community. So yeah, huge amount of work in 2 weeks. And new reference for the poses, new drawings for that, and then trying to adapt everything. They did remove the chest piece that was that I didn't really understand up there. So took that out. I think that's a good call, just to not have that in there. Mm-hmm. And the face is more understandable. Right, last time I felt like maybe there was black makeup on that face or an odd shadow of something. I wasn't sure what it was. This one's definitely more understandable. And
I like the hair. It feels like it has a part. It makes a little bit more sense now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've got some thoughts here. Several different things catch my attention. The values are kind of out of whack right now. Similar thing we saw in the other one, where we're getting too dark too easily and we're losing the local value of a lot of stuff. So I want to bring back a lot of the local values, and the overall proportions of the body are pretty close, but the head itself is actually too small. So we want to scale the head up a little bit. Okay. So I can't remember what. Oh. I did have Mr. West Burt as a reference here. If you want some good references of how to hand draw some characters with a very soft sort of overhead light. Westbert, that's the way he normally draws them.
He always has, super straightforward poses. He doesn't mess around too much with that. It's super understandable. The design is clear. If you see how the elements are separated, he's a really good person to check out and look at his work because it's you can't go wrong with following what he's already put out there. I mean, there's how could you say there's anything wrong with it? It's great.
So Westbert has long been one of my inspirations, and so I just note like on his how clean the lighting and values are, and a lot of items like down here on this dude in the middle, that green just basically stays to a certain little range, right? And the leather stays to a little range of values and colors. And even this metal piece right here, he doesn't allow it to get nearly as dark as the object next to it, which again allows it to read really well. So that's what I want to take some inspiration from and try to clean up some of this. I just put the poser reference over there to kind of judge. And this is where I could tell like the head was a little small. Okay, so I started with this layer. It's just a normal layer, and it's at 65% opacity. And all I did was grab whatever the local color was and painted it back over anything that wasn't an occlusion shadow. And you can tell even from a smaller view, it's just more understandable that each piece stands out clearer because of that. And then coming back in at a normal, just made the head a little bigger. I also felt like the ear was out of position. I felt like it was too low and too far back. I don't know, it just felt like the length of that jaw seemed wrong to me.
In the doll, it might be accurate, but on the illustration, like, I don't know what the doll looks like from the side. But in the illustration, it looked like a weird kind of big bulge.
Yeah.
And I know you're trying to give kind of this like strong jaw sculpted look. I like doing that in my characters too, but you have to be careful because you can like go a little too far and then it ends up looking like a bulge right here instead of a strong sculpted jaw.
So I just made that change and just shifted it back in a little bit, made that jaw not quite so long. I feel like that works a little better. And you can also see how that we're getting a lot of these really deep darks right in the lip area, around the nose, around the cheeks, and just trying to even that out a little bit. So now the attention goes more to the eyes because there's not so much other darks kind of competing for it. Let me got that on there too. And I didn't have anything to measure against, but just having used a rifle before, it felt like that's too small. Like the butt of that rifle is only about that big compared to the character, and I think they're usually bigger than that. So I just scaled it up some. I just scaled it up, I don't know, 15% or something. And I feel like that's more accurate because those things can be full rifles pretty long. So I just put that up a little bit. And then also made some adjustments to the cape. It's a little unlikely that you're going to get a in and back, in and back. And then same thing over here, you've got it dropping up and then down, and up and then down, right? It doesn't usually do that as much. If it's a heavy fabric, it usually wants to stay a little more rigid. So I think you might just hang a little more.
You can sweep it up, but then there would be kind of wind on everything. So, you have to, and if you're going to push one side of it up, the other should go in the same, more or less the same direction, following the wind, like you did in your earlier version, right? So just bear that in mind with capes. If you're wanting to move them, actually think, okay, where's the wind in this scenario coming from, like the fictional wind, which way would all the fabric go? It would sweep up, you know, back or into the side in the same direction.
This is a common thing to overlook. I've done it before, and that is not allowing not allowing the cloak to be visible between the legs. So we've got to make sure that stays.
I've done that before.
There.
This is not, yeah. These things happen, and then you just have to, when you catch it, you fix it.
Yeah. So keep that in mind, that they should be, you know, keeping a through line there. I would take out, I know it was in the earlier version, but I would take out the purple sash. It just doesn't fit with anything at this point.
Well, that was my critique. I said that, well, it was there, and I said if it's going to be there, it should be a different color than just the same color as everything. So, so Stella was taking my advice, but you think it should just go all together?
Well, right now it's just one horizontal sash.
I would alter the position of it and probably put, if you wanted to keep it, put the belt or a strap over top of it.
Yeah.
So that it's not just a rectangle.
Yeah, because a lot of times, if you're going to have a wide sash like that, what you're going to do is actually put your belt across the middle of the sash, and it acts as kind of a softening.
Yeah, well, you have to think about it. If you were putting this on, would you want the belt to hang underneath it? It would be so low, right, on your body. So this goes for everyone when you're, like, thinking about the costume, the elements that you're adding, and, like, look at yourself and think, would there actually be room for this stuff? How would I put this on? Because right now, you've got kind of the sash giving a high-waisted vibe, but the pants are kind of low because they have to be under the sash. Can you move your hand just for a minute? So you're getting almost kind of like the belly's hanging over the pants, which is kind of a weird arrangement. So.
And we're not really telling at this point why the sash is there. It doesn't kind of fit into what's going on.
Inside the pants, which is strange.
Unless that's like the undershirt. No, it doesn't make sense. It looks like it's over.
You might just want to get rid of it and maybe make a purple vest or something inside.
Yeah.
You know, like you could get, may I? You could get in here. If you wanted to keep something purple there, you have that nice green shirt. You could just, is this a full opaque? Oh, I have to press hard on yours, okay. You could just add kind of a, you know, maybe some kind of purple vest in there if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, like an open vest?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to add some of that color back.
If you wanted to keep it, to add a little bit, you know, to keep some of that original thing or element there. And, you know, break up the shapes, or you could do away with it altogether and just have a green shirt tucked into the pants. But, you know, they're just different alternatives.
Yep.
I like the style of pants that you chose. I think it reads a lot better in this version than in the previous version.
I feel like
seem a little small.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking as well. So we both feel like the feet are a bit too small. Obviously, you don't want to go overboard with the feet. But we probably do want to lengthen them out a little bit. Just doesn't seem quite proportional to the body. Just allowing them to be. Now, Diana doesn't really like drawing boots. I'll tell you that.
I don't. I will draw them, but they're the worst thing for me.
I, on the other hand,
and shoes.
Also do not like drawing them. But everybody's got to. So I guess, you know, you have to learn how to do them okay. So yeah, I feel like the character as a whole really works. The pose is working. I like the action of the loading of the bullet. That's a good simple action to have someone do.
Improvement over the last, action.
Yeah. that works. So just cleaning up some of the values in the lighting so it's a little more understandable. That head size a little bit, taking out some of the extra darks and blacks on the face.
Well, I was just looking at Jude Smith's work today, and I would say like he's got some pieces that would probably be really good reference for you if you wanted to finish this to kind of a higher level. Just go look at Jude on ArtStation, and he's got some standalone characters on white backgrounds, on dark backgrounds that are really excellent, and this one kind of just reminded me a little bit of some of his. So if you want to take this really to the next level, I would check that out.
All right, got to be moving on, Stella. Good stuff. All right, we're 2 hours in and we got 2 left.
Okay.
Next up is Reese.
Reese.
Okay, now I went ahead and added the concept over here on the left side, and then the final on the right, obviously. So Reese, major feedback here is time spent. So we had the 2 weeks. You put a lot of time into this, and I'm telling you what, the rendering here is some really sharp stuff.
It's really good. Like your boots.
Yeah, look at these things.
Yeah.
Woo!
I love that inner part of the boot too. Like that was well done. Your lantern's pretty good too. You spend a lot of time on these lovely details on the buttons, for instance, on the little decorative pieces on the shoulders. Yeah.
So I got to say, you put in the time. That's really good. That's paying off well for the rendering. It's still trying to catch up with my pen. Give me a second. No, for some reason it just wants to move it up.
Keeps moving.
Even when I'm not touching it. Okay. But as sort of your art teacher in this situation, I got to say that you didn't really prioritize the most important things to do with the time. So it's great that you spent the time, but you didn't do it on what would make the biggest difference and what would overall improve the piece the most. So last time we gave you some good feedback on the proportion of the character and how the waist was getting really low, or the legs were really short, and with the physique of the character, with him having these really big jowls, which just physiologically you're not going to get unless you're like literally 800 pounds as a human being. You've got to be super, super, super heavy in order to have that kind of fat roll there. And I made some mention about the angle of the face, that his face was kind of flattened off and needed to be rounded out a bit more. And we don't see any of those changes made. So this is where I'm just going to give you some observations, some feedback here. We will go in and start looking at how to handle some of the rendering and improve that as well from where we are. But because this challenge has always been set up as as to kind of stand in for what an actual commission would be like, right? It's a mock-up of an actual commission. Then I'm giving you feedback not just as an art teacher, but kind of as an art director. The assumption being that most of the people in the challenges are trying to get into the industry at some point. That not implementing your directors and your art teachers' advice is not a really good show.
Well, to be fair, this is for fun, right?
Yeah.
This is for fun. I think Clint's just pointing out the fact that if this was like a real work scenario, if it was something that we were working on for a client and they needed us to correct the body, the physique, the anatomy, whatever, and if we didn't, and instead we just spent 2 weeks rendering, what would happen is, and this has happened, they would just end up taking the piece away from us and giving it to someone else who would implement the changes that they asked for. So this is for fun, and it is a fun concept, and you
Yeah.
did a lot of great rendering and painting work. It's not a criticism of your technique. Um, Rather, like what you did to the piece as is was good work. The only issue is that the feedback that was given to you previously could have elevated it even better. It
Yeah.
could have made it even better than this. And so actually making those changes would have in the end benefited your piece.
Hmm.
But yeah, I just wanted to make a small comment on that, just so you're aware. But are you going to get into actually
Yeah.
critiquing?
So again, we're kind of rolling back to the same points that we talked about the previous time, which is to get the most out of this image, we're going to have to go back and correct some of the anatomy proportion issues. And ultimately, that's where you're going to get a lot more from it. Uh, for the head, we really do need to have a good face head reference in order to fix the anatomy. So if you were to put a center line down the face, it's got a consistent like outward lean to it, which is it's just not anatomically accurate for like anybody. The eyes are also really close together, so we have a lot of head back here, and the eyes are really close. So we want to make sure that we try to get those eyes out a little bit, and we're going to get more of that roundness to the face, and we're going to try to still keep him looking really, really overweight, right? We're not trying to lose that, but we are trying to find a more natural way to resolve the neck and the chin area. So I found this head reference from the website Figurosity, which are basically Daz dolls that are pre-posed and lit and stuff. And it's not the exact same, but it has enough of the information there that I could look at it and kind of see, what's looking at like. And here you can see, if you look at that center line, and it has that natural curve to it at that angle. And we can look to see how wide the eyes are spread in comparison to the entire width of the head. So that's where I did like a repaint of the head and bringing that in there.
I want to paint or paint. I want to point out as well that sometimes these bigger body types can be harder to find for reference.
Oh yeah.
But Figurosity, like you mentioned, has a couple. A New Masters Academy. I know that's paid. Okay, it's not free, but I do know that there is at least one model with this body type in their photo sets. So even if you just sign up for a month and grab a bunch of references that you need, I'm not saying to do that or not do that. I'm just putting it out there that they have some really, really great figure reference for lots of different body types and skin tones that you might not find on ArtStation. I'm not really sure, about everything on ArtStation, but I happen to know that there are a few models like this on New Masters. And so you can reference real people and really check your anatomy. It's better than just making things up and hoping for the best. Especially with a body type that isn't super conventional that you're used to seeing everywhere. If you need something more unique, it's good to really take the extra time to find that reference.
Yeah, yeah, and really, you probably don't see it as much in a lot of the videos and stuff online, but illustrators usually spend way more time looking for references and doing their preliminary work than a lot of people think they do. It's really not as much guesswork as a lot of people think illustrators are making. So particularly changes made through here were rounding out this area and getting that brow and that bone structure in there. Lowering the hat, actually. And it seemed like a little high. It is bringing back that side of the nose a little bit. Just allowed him to have a little more of a bulbous nose. And bringing the mouth back to the right a little some. So it was getting to the left a bit much. it depends what look you're going for the character. I felt like his lips were maybe a little too pronounced. So I thinned them a little bit, kind of based on my reference, and went between the reference and your original drawing, and allowed him to get more of the fat that is from here, like in this area, right? That it sort of connects here, but then it starts sagging at this point, rather than adding it to the jaw, right? The jaw is one of the last places you actually get fat. So more saggy there. Then he has a more subtle second chin, double chin, right here. And not so much the really big one that we have currently. And trying to get a little more form on just the chin itself. So here we have this curve on this side, and then we get into the heaviness in the cheeks, kind of bowing down. And then we have the curvature of the chin.
And you did a beautiful job rendering the rest of the character. It's just, that's what we're looking for, is for you to bring kind of the anatomy and the face rendering up to the same level as all your other stuff. Because right in your original, your costume is rendered at a really high level, and then the face, you just, didn't, it looks to me like you didn't spend as much time and care with it. And really with any kind of character illustration, that's the thing that people are going to spend the most time looking at, and they're going to judge the harshness is the face, the face and the hands. So the face should always be, take more time on that before resolving other parts of the costume.
Then I just did a proportion change here where I grabbed everything up from the knees and shifted it up. And then I put in a new head, and the new head is a little bit smaller. I scaled it down, I don't know, 15% or so. So I think that with those two changes, it actually gets you really close.
And I'll explain why too. When we referenced this, when we actually looked at a couple of models who were on the bigger side, even if you have a big belly, on a man, you're still going to see the crotch area. It's not going to disappear under the belly unless the person is, like you're saying, like 800 pounds. So you're still going to see it. It'll never ball over like that, rounded like that. So you're going to see something there. And he's wearing pants, it's going to fit that way. So that was one point of correction that we wanted to see from you. And then the face, right? So those were the two things. And you can see, how it elevates the character overall.
Yeah, really it's about, getting that face up to that same level as the body, because so much of this just looks...
It's beautifully done.
Excellent. Yeah. It's really nice. And here I'm not really changing anything on... I'm just trying to connect up the lines on the pants.
The colors are nice. Your values are nice.
Yeah. And I like the overall design of the character. I feel like the coat has interest. I like the stripes on the pants. He's well designed, honestly. So, yeah. Man, we hope you found this helpful, and maybe we'll catch you in a future art challenge.
Yep. I hope we weren't too hard on you. If we were, it's just because you produced something that was so good that we were just a little bit disappointed that those points weren't addressed. That's all.
Yeah. Oh, it's in cancel. Okay. Last one up is this Nico?
No, we already reviewed.
No, I guess it's another one.
Oh, a different Nico.
Different Nico. Hey, Clint and Diana. Feedback's helped me come up with a design that's more suited for a coachman. Being in the rain, gearing up for the weather, changing our hat, overall using references more efficiently. Thanks again. So guys, another one. Completely redrawn character. Well, I guess maybe they saved the head and the arm, and that was like it.
Yeah, I really gotta say, I'm amazed that everybody put in so much work and totally redid things that weren't working. I mean, that's a huge part of being a professional artist, is just when something's not working, you have two choices. It's try to monkey with it and make it work, or just get rid of it. And I was really impressed that so many people just got
Hmm.
rid of it and it's not working. Okay, I'm gonna do something else, and that's really cool.
So yeah, huge kudos on that. You bit the bullet. I have a video about biting the bullet when something's not quite going to work, um, and I think it paid off. This one does really feel a lot like a Coachman, and I still think it fits pretty close into that Bloodborne universe. I think that's very close. So, where do we go from here? And what's working, what's not working? Overall design, I think the design of the character,
Yeah, the
solid.
clothing makes sense.
Yeah. We can take a look real quick at some of the references they're running with down here. Good reference pack. These are all pretty consistent style-wise, inspiration-wise. So, and that's a good. We didn't find that one. We were trying to
We
find
were looking
Coachman.
for Coachman, didn't find that guy. That's a good one.
I feel like a lot of inspiration was probably taken from this one.
Mm.
So that's a nice piece right there. Yeah, this is definitely kind of that Bloodborne territory, right? That sort of thing.
It's a little bit more dark and angular.
Yeah, yeah. So here, uh, I mean, I remember I did some things to this. I don't remember exactly what they are. Okay, so the change. Same thing as another piece we just looked at, which is you've got a primary pose reference down here, but your pose is actually different than that. So just a little clarification here. At this point, this is not your primary pose reference. It is just a reference. Okay. For something to properly be your primary pose reference, it needs to be the pose you want at the angle you want. Now, it doesn't mean that it needs to be under the same lighting. They don't need to be wearing the same colors. It doesn't even need to be the same gender or age. It just needs to be in the same perspective at the same pose. It could even be the arms could be different.
Yeah. As long as, like I was saying before, the pose doesn't have to be 100% exactly what you want, but it should be mostly what you want so that you're not making major changes like rotating the whole body. If you start rotating the whole body, that's a different pose.
Yep.
And it makes, we're only saying this because it makes your life easier if you get the right reference. It's just so much less time fixing things.
And really that's it. That's just from experience. We've both learned that it's worth your time to do it. And being honest, there really isn't a reason you shouldn't be able to find a pose reference at this point. There are so many websites, photos, 3D models, programs, and just your own webcam and camera on your phone.
Lots of people do that too. Yeah.
It's too easy to get straightforward poses. So next time, when you're tackling something like this, go ahead and make that little extra effort.
Well, I think he did try. It's just the problem for Nico is that the pose he chose initially didn't work, and then he had to start all over again.
Yeah.
So I understand. I understand what happened. But in future characters, like when you go now, let's say a couple of days or whenever you decide to start a new one, spend some extra time finding the right pose that you really like that works for the character, and then try sticking to that if you can.
Yeah. I was just having to check, make sure my string was still doing okay. Other thing, render style, I think, is a big question that I would have at this stage. And, where do you want to take it from here? I don't think it's finished. I think it's all the major information has been set. We know who this character is. We know the major elements going on here, but it's not yet to their style art inspiration. Right? It's not hitting that yet. So we also have to ask, is this going to be a line drawing with colors under it, or is this going to be a painting? Right now, I feel like it's trying to be half and half. And it's really going to be best if,
it's like there's some soft shades and rendering on that hand, but then, the hair is a very and the face is a very flat line work with flats underneath style. So you kind of do need to decide how you want to approach this. If you want it to be cartoony and just like Matt Rhodes, right, just lines and flats and cell shading, or if you want to do something more like your inspiration, which is a little bit more rendered, more painterly.
Yep. And make sure that you find as many close references. Like, if you like this style, then try to go find somebody in some sort of duster or jacket in that style. And again, the closer you can get to what you're actually doing, the better. And let's go through a couple of things. Some of the other things that got me was not a big fan of like this dark interior color. It just makes it odd to look at when it's small. I'm not really understanding what the black line is coming up the character.
Well, it's also a different color from here to here. Here it's purple, here it's red.
Yeah. So these two seem like they're kind of a different range, but they should be the same. I'm also not a fan of this flap of the inside flapping back out like that. Again, I think it's just making it more visually complicated than it really needs to be.
Let me see the reference. If you move this just a little bit, because I think we're referencing some jackets here. We just need to take a closer look at the clothing and see how it really goes together. So none of these are doing that because it would be very difficult to close it. I mean, how would you close those bits?
Yes.
They're mostly just straight on down the line. Let's see this one. Yeah, there's ways to make it angular, but not there.
And this one has those big pieces that come out.
Yeah, well, they're to
cinch it across, yeah. So I would take those out if it were me. And down here, this isn't quite making sense as far as how this ends.
Well, you should decide do you want it to be torn or do you want it to be just not damaged? Right? Because if it's not damaged, it needs to be cut straight, like clothes are. Or if it's going to be damaged, then it needs to be torn, obviously torn.
Yeah, then we need to have a clear ripped edge on the bottom of it. Now, it can also be flapped open, but it needs to have some sort of clear, I'm falling back over myself sort of pattern going on, right? It needs to have something understandable like that. And I also want to get a little more out of the pose. I feel like the pose is too static. And this, I'm going to guess, has to do with trying to adapt a front view pose to a 3/4 pose.
Yeah, and using the upper body from a different pose.
And so here we've got the body like in a very static stance. And the knees are bowed a bit too much. So it makes this kind of odd stance. So let's try to fix that a little bit. Looking at giving that natural kind of stance that somebody would have, more like that. The chest is usually out a little bit, and then legs kind of come back. Because we're carrying weight not just on our heel, but the front of our foot, which means that part of our foot is behind us and part of our foot is in front of us. And that's how we spread our weight. So that, and I just did copy and paste and then just warped the legs to try to get them kind of back a little bit. And then here, the whole chest area didn't feel like she had a chest. So doing that and letting her chest rib cage move forwards and then letting her have a bit more bosom. And these jackets have a tendency to just hang pretty straight. They don't really have much form to them. So this kind of gives you that boxy-ish shape. Next, this is just a multiply layer. Going forwards, we probably need more tone in the face. The face is almost white, like white. And so I just multiply layer, bring that down a little bit. And then I went back with some paints, just a normal layer. and went to work on a couple of things. So one is adding some color into the lantern. That's a good place to get some color back in. And adjusting some of this cloak shape. Here I think it's important to try to find some negative space in there. Right?
So that it isn't all just one solid big chunk.
And here, the simplest answer that I could think of was to just let the bottom of the cape just hang down, and basically it makes this sort of loop around the back of the body, right? And so you can kind of see the change there. And again, it's going to flare out more at the bottom because there's more fabric at the bottom, so it has to like flare out a little bit. And it's just a little bit narrower there. So it has a slight taper to it, but it's still pretty loose item. And took out that other piece thing. Here, I know there's different ways of doing this. I just simplified it when I was doing the quick paint over and had those pieces come in front like that. Looking at the shoulders, this is another one where we have a character with her shoulder up holding something, and that's naturally going to make that shoulder extra high. And so trying to let this shoulder get high enough with all that stuff that sort of comes through, right? This side also was low, and I want to bring out from a wider view that angle change. So here it's just kind of one big roundy shape on that shoulder, and here we can get a sense of the layers even from a small view. Like that. You haven't really looked at this one until we sit down here. So what's your thoughts at this point?
No, I mean those. That's all good feedback. I think value-wise, I'm kind of losing the pants in there. I would consider just changing the value of the pants so that it just doesn't look like there's nothing there. It almost blends in totally into the coat, which makes it look like there's almost nothing there but a hole.
Yeah, I feel like some lighter breeches, maybe.
Maybe not that light, but something a little bit lighter. Yeah.
Something that right. Just so the value separates out from some of those other items.
Yeah. And I would consider really putting some more into the shirt, into the pants, like stitching wise, pockets, you know, just to make it look more like clothing and not just like a blob. Yeah, exactly. And really think about what kind of shirt is that underneath. Maybe there should be a vest. Otherwise, it just kind of looks like a flowy blouse, which is fine if you want her to wear a flowy blouse underneath. You want something flowy, but I would consider maybe making some kind of vest. If you want to bring that red color in, you could actually just make a red vest and keep that gray or that purple for the blouse. Like
yeah, either way you want to try to cut that.
You could also, do something like this.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
To kind of tie it together.
Yeah, that's nice.
And then I would also add something here to kind of join these things, just because, maybe not in orange, but because it these two areas are very pulled close together.
Yeah.
Right? And there has to be something there holding them together. Otherwise, it wouldn't,
it wouldn't
just stay like that.
Yeah.
So this is just, a suggestion on kind of how to handle some of these things. Give it a little bit more complexity, and then you can go further, right? Like, I really wish this had a color wheel. It's mega annoying. Adding like little pockets or like some kind of a pocket watch.
Yeah. Yeah, that would work.
Like, gosh, I really detest this. Or a chain, something like that. Same thing here, like making that pocket like maybe more floppy, more noticeable on the outside. You got the stitching here. You could kind of go further, add it over there.
Mm-hmm.
So things that make it more believable, a little bit more interesting. Just going a little bit extra.
Yeah, and after you do all that kind of stuff, you can come back and just do like some dirt. Right. This sort of character is probably going to have like mud, on the bottom down here.
And Nico, if you're going for a realistic style or like a painterly style like this, don't forget to apply that to the face and the hair, just like on the previous paint over that Clint did, which is kind of bringing the face to match everything else. So it should match the face and the clothing, the body should be the same render style, should be the same level of care. If anything, more on the face than on the rest. But they should match to keep it, nice and consistent, high level of quality across the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that game. It's not a very clean city. Okay.
It's a dirty city. Well, you don't have to go super dirty, but it's just a little, I guess, suggestion of narrative.
Yeah, so that's kind of the changes we're looking at there. And this one's up to you. You can kind of go either way with it, and that is, do you want to bring torchlight onto the character?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do want to play it up, sometimes you don't. Right now I'm just using a hard light layer. Just, you can kind of play around with it and see if you do. A lot of people have a hard time doing suggestive torchlight without it trying to be real accurate, and then if you apply it right here, then you have to make it across the rest of the character.
You're gonna have to darken the face if you want to do that, because right now the face is lighter than the torch, so it's not gonna work.
So you can do it if you want, but you might also just want to do it like on the closest arm, and then kind of like right there, then that's it, right? You don't really have it on the rest of the character, because it can get a lot complicated a lot easier. So, hard time rendering the face versus the boot, something really felt off.
Yeah, the face, I think you were afraid to render it, is what it looks like. It's like you had this delicate drawing and you didn't really want to break it. And this is totally normal. But you have to go push yourself, because what's the worst that can happen? If you don't like it, just delete the layer that you just did, right? Make a new layer and just try it out. But the thing that's lacking is you're not treating the face like a 3D form. Yep. You're just treating it like a delicate line drawing, like an ink drawing. And so it's not getting form like the rest of your character is getting form. And that means you have to get in there and add...
Wow.
Oh, wow.
This lag is just making it really hard.
We still haven't figured out how to fix this.
Oh, it's way better than it was.
No, it was worse.
Yeah.
But it's still really slow when we try to move things around or draw. It's applying those different values to the face in order to get the rounding of the form, right? And we have an exercise that I've done in my classes you're going to do with your portrait students, which is treating the head like an egg, right? Thinking about it as a 3D form as a whole. And that's what you really need to push yourself to do, so that it's not.
Now, this is one of the problems, like, if you're working, this photo is too high key to begin with. So if you want to paint the face, then you got to get the color back in the face so that you can actually see some of those forms. Now, that you can paint from. This is hard to paint from because there's hardly anything there. And this is just, working with the values, the levels on the layer. And then you can come in and start, trying to block in some shadows and some forms. I'm not still color. But first thing you want to do is just try to divide it into kind of light shadow areas. Like here, the eyes are definitely darker. They're in shadow. So you're just trying to do the light shadow areas. You got a plane under the nose. It's going to be getting dark here. A little bit under the cheeks. And you start having to build it up. And
the upper lip.
Yeah, building the shadow. The upper lip is the lip's a little too low. And then we're going to get that shadow under here. Oh, this is 59%. I was like, why am I having to
Yeah, I was
fight
struggling.
so much to make that show up? Normally I wouldn't color sample this much, but I'm just trying to go really fast. I have like one little spot of gray in there, and that's gonna be about it. Yeah, honestly, all of that is going to be like right up under that hat is going to be really dark. It's like up under her hair. Yeah, so. It would just take time to do all this. But you know, that's what it needs. It needs you to go in there and take the time and just start building up all of the forms, adding that color back in there.
And don't just get a photo reference of a person. Like if you've never painted a face like this, get like a painted face, an art reference from someone who painted a face similar to this well, and then kind of see what they did. Where did they put the colors? How deep did they go? How dark did they go in the eyes, for instance, or under the nose? So you can kind of compare to what you're doing. Because a photograph, you know, there's only so much information that you can really get from it. It won't teach you to resolve things in a painting, right? It'll just give you information about, you know, the distances, proportions, shapes, but it won't teach you how to render it, it won't teach you how to paint it. It's better to go and examine some paintings as well, to kind of see how other artists did it, and then bring some of that information into yours.
Yeah. So I mean, that's what we do is just get our reference there and start working our way through it, trying to build up color and forms. And with the ladies, especially, you don't want to accent the navel fold or navel.
Nasal.
Nasal.
Navel is belly button.
Yeah, I was like, that doesn't sound right.
Nasal.
Yeah, you really don't want to accent the navel fold on the face.
That would be a bit scary. Yeah. No, you don't want to, unless they're older women, right? You got to be careful about adding wrinkles or lines on the face. That's lines, but that doesn't mean that there can't be form, shadow, and light and dark, because you need that to round out the form to add volume. Just be careful of where you put any lines. Looks like she got scratched by a dog or something, got attacked by an animal.
Carriage drivers, man, you know, delivering that mail and those attack
Very
dogs.
hazardous profession.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that probably gives them an idea.
Oh.
There we go. Well, we're going to have to leave it there, guys. Went a little longer than we expected, but hopefully everybody got something out of this stream. And we really appreciate you sticking with us. If you want to see more of us, jump into class starting next month. Otherwise, more art challenges coming up probably in about 2 months. And I will let you know on the channel when something's going to be happening.
And I just want to say thank you to all the participants for being really good sports about everything, and you know, putting in a lot of effort and turning everything in every week. It was, or every deadline. It was really cool, and we couldn't really do this without your participation and cooperation. So thank you.
We do appreciate it. All right, until we see you next time, keep drawing.